Hello, my name's Laurel Pepworth and this is Laurel Live because I can't think of anything else to call it. So what I thought we'd talk about today, and I'd like your feedback as well, so please give me your comments wherever you're seeing this video, if you're seeing it live, and I'll put them up on the screen and we'll talk about it. I have had a lot of queries particularly from media, about how bad social media is for people during crisis comes, which is pretty pejorative in and of itself. I think that there's an argument at least for both ways. But I have asked around particularly on Facebook, has social media helped you during the coronavirus, during the pandemic, and in fact through any of the situations we've been through in the last year? And oh boy, has it been a year. So I think there's a lot in this to unpack. I don't want to spend too long on it, partly because I'm heading out to get a new computer today. And I wanted to do this video before that happened, because we all know the minute you get a new computer, everything breaks and nothing works, and then you probably won't see me for a month because it's going to take me absolutely forever to sort things out. If you can't hear me, please let me know. If you can hear me, please let me know. And all right. So the first thing to maybe talk about is, or for you to think about is, what have been the positives and the negatives of social media? So one thing that I've been doing is I shifted from kind of allowing everybody in my stream. I think, I'm a community manager. I'm used to extreme views. I see them all the time on all my forums and my communities. So if my friends want to go off the deep end, I let them. And then I got fed up. And probably for the first time in my life, I've really been censoring or filtering what people say around me and to me. And if I start to get upset, then I block them. But that's rare. There was one guy who I didn't realize was a white supremacist and denied that there was race and denied that there was issues, and I just couldn't take it, so I blocked them. Did it make me feel upset? Yes, it did. It upset me that I had to do it. And in that sense, I can understand why journalists are asking me to comment on the fact that social media is bad for us. But I also know that there's been quite a few times when I've got information that I wasn't aware of, and it reminds me of the fact that social media is collaborative journalism. Traditional journalism is solution media. In fact, it's not even solution media, it's problem media. Hey, here's a problem, here's one point of view, here's another point of view, bye. Collaborative journalism is there an issue? Let's explore, let's have debate, let's learn through making mistakes. So, for instance, I saw a few days ago a link going up about the coronavirus, and that the WHO said, World Health Organization said, that people that are asymptomatic weren't passing it on. And then a few days later, they reported the fact that they think that 40% of transmissions are from asymptomatic people, which we kind of knew because there was a lot of discussion about certain asymptomatic people who'd passed on viruses. I think the one with the big swimming pool party, the big pool party in America, and there was another one in China that was asymptomatic and travelled a lot. And there was those two guys that went bar hopping. Anyway, it's about toing and froing and discussions, I guess. And if somebody says, I read this and this is the fact, then other people come in with science and opinions and different things. Let me just switch to this one. I've got to see if this works. So this is exciting. So Ben says that it annoyed him, in particular, reading totally unhinged conspiracy theory, narcissist undermining the national health effort. Generally found social media to be detrimental to our efforts in resolving this pandemic. Yeah, that's possible. There's certainly people that were reinforcing their views, like the people that don't realise that the phone app doesn't work, it hasn't been approved, is unable to unload data, and yet they are harassing people with their point of view that you have to download it, even though it doesn't work. That one I thought was interesting. And then the flip side of that, the people that are reinforcing nobody's catching it, it's not really a pandemic, it's not really an issue. So there's been extremes kind of on both sides, the extremely risk averse and those that are not. We're finding out a lot about people, I think. Do you agree? There's a couple of business people who are heading into super shady territory when they're not medical experts and they're not referencing medical studies. And I kind of want to say to them, look, we all know that your bottom line is economic and your own finances. But yeah, you're putting people in business and you're putting businesses at risk, because if a business opens up and doesn't, I think, follow recommendations from their industry organisations and from Service New South Wales about how to reopen, and they run into trouble, and there is a hotspot that breaks out at that Now salon or that centre, they're going to have a bigger problem going forward than simply this issue that's got, not simply, it's a big issue, but this issue of a few weeks or a few months could end up destroying their business completely. So let's have a look at social media usage during the pandemic. So what I'd like to do is bring up this screen, if I can remember how to do it. This is the fun thing with live. Oh yeah, that'll do. Kind of, maybe. No, not really. Let me just go back to this one again, and then I can edit this one here. And if I go to this screen, we still have the same problem where it's too small. So what I'll do is make this larger. I changed the resolution of my monitor around so it becomes problematic sometimes. I would like you to see things clearly. There you go. Google Trends. So in the last 12 months, a score of 96 or 100 means it's highest usage, and then when we get down to the 80s, it's the lowest usage. And Google's YouTube stays in the 80s and the 90s, although there are definitely peaks from March onwards for YouTube. So we can see it was quieter and then higher. It was pretty high during the bushfires. Oh no, that's worldwide. But you know, different things going on around the world. If we change Australia, there's definitely an increase in YouTube from March onwards. So I would suggest that if you're not using YouTube as part of your social media strategy to stay engaged with your audiences, then maybe that's something to think about. But definitely there's an increase in YouTube. It's probably all of those pandemic deniers that couldn't get airtime on traditional media, so they shifted to social media. And there's quite a lot of YouTube videos from nurses and health experts, about their views on COVID-19. Let's have a look at TikTok. Back to screen share. And if I say the last 12 months, there's definitely a spike in TikTok usage in September. If anybody knows what that one's about, please let me know. Then it drops down to the 18 and 20s. And then we're up into the 90s in April and May. So TikTok gets a massive surge during both the pandemic and the Black Lives Matter. Sorry, my Australian accent. So we're seeing here in Australia, yes, a big surge from March and April onwards, and then it's down a bit May and into June. Now, one that I thought was interesting was LinkedIn. Let's have a look at Australia's usage of LinkedIn. Okay, Christmas time, LinkedIn doesn't get a lot of love. B2B, people are spending their money at Christmas, but it's not on B2B, it's on retail. And then there's the payment of their Visa card bills in January. So now it drops down during the pandemic. So we see an inverse on LinkedIn of social media usage during the coronavirus and during crises. And it's almost certainly because often businesses don't understand the value of marketing and communicating to their community during a crisis. So people pull the blankets over their head and move on. It's a stressful time for everyone, and they tend to focus their social media output on the sharing of the more, I guess, conspiracy theorist type things, and or cute, funny, inspirational things to get away from the stress. And then the business stuff falls off a cliff because they see social media as a sales channel, not a comms channel. So the need to stay engaged with their audiences drops off. Not every business. I mean, obviously a lot of businesses are pretty smart and they recognize they need to bounce back. So they need to stay communicating and doing a good job of helping the community in other ways, I guess. You know, everything from, I thought the club that opened up the movie drive-in for free, and they displayed the movies on the wall of the outside of the club, and then they used the car park for people to watch the movies. And I thought IKEA turning their car park into a place where the large mosque could do prayer, because nobody's using the car park if IKEA is closed, was a really interesting way of communicating with their community and adding something positive to the social media discussion. So if people themselves are messy human beings and sharing all sorts of crap online that upsets us and makes us emotional and angry and wanting to make rebuttals, then sometimes brands can simply maybe do a nice sort of, I don't know, waffling. Let's see. Shaman, only use social media for entertainment now and to share what I'm passionate about. Also started using TikTok during COVID-19 for the laughs. I agree, Shaman. I think that TikTok has been really interesting because Instagram is all about Instagram perfect. So you have to have the perfect lighting and the perfect face and the perfect pout. I don't know how to pout. And everything's Insta perfect and Insta beauty spots, and you're living your best life. And TikTok's such a mess. It's families goofing off and dancing, and I like the one where they do this and they point to the different corners and it says different things. But although brands are hopping on TikTok, they're a bit at a loss because the whole point of TikTok is it has to be messy. The only brand I can think of that does exceptionally well with the messiness of TikTok is Washington Post, because they goof off and it's a goofy place. So if you're depressed and your social media stream is making you feel worse, and I know we can say, oh, you're choosing to feel worse, whatever, just curate that stream, get rid of the people, mute them, put them into the acquaintances list, just go to the following button and then click on that and just check acquaintances and you'll see less of their stuff as well. And make sure that your feeds and your social media are full of people who are making changes in the world, help you to feel inspired and better, and connect to your passion. Now, what I will say about passion is you have to be prepared to debate. So it doesn't matter what you're passionate about, but you can get into some pretty heavy debates with people if you're passionate. But it's always about, for me, debate the issues. If you can debate about knitting and sewing, and by the way, I did sew most of my curtains the other day for those of you that were following that live stream. But you can argue about how to do some sewing. So I actually asked a question about sewing the curtains, and I got a lot of different responses, and people were quite passionate about how large the hem should be on a curtain. You can argue about anything. But there's a difference between debating issues and coming in with different points of views, and then versus nullifying other people, cutting off all discussion. And yes, it's been an interesting time. I do think we're in the terrible twos of social media, meaning that we have to learn how to communicate with people that do not share our values. And when you've got a certain value, a certain set of values, and your feed is full of people that share those values, and then somebody else wanders in and makes you question them or tries to force you to question them, it's easy for that cancel culture to kick in and reject everybody. And I think what happens is, if we dismiss them too quickly, we don't have that opportunity to really learn how the rest of the world thinks. So while I thank the white supremacist for the lessons, there is a point though where I need to cut it off and say, okay, I've got this. I know the lay of the land. We are not going to convince each other. One of us needs to withdraw. I'm going to withdraw. Often though, one of the things that I'm aware of, and this, I don't know if this is a hinder on the hinder side or the help side, and that's really what we're talking about, is I may not convince the person I'm talking to directly, but there's an invisible audience out there that believes something in fake news, or they believed in a viewpoint that they read and it made sense to them, and they've not heard the contrary viewpoint. Is it my job, though, to correct the whole of the internet? And the minute that I feel like that's what I'm doing, I shut social media down and I go away and do something else that's more fun or creative or business oriented, that will lead me towards my goals or something, because you can't just sit there and correct everybody forever and ever and ever. As well as the trends section, so we looked at LinkedIn and we looked at YouTube. I'm just wondering how Facebook fared on Google Trends. Look, it's not the most perfect analytic tool. There's lots of others, but I really just want to see if there's a peak. So there was one in March and then it's dropped down again for Facebook. That's for Australia, by the way. And then Instagram. New Year's is popular for Instagram. We saw a surge in Instagram mid-April for Australia, dropping off and then picking up again. What are we up here? 91's here, 76 is here. So there are definitely winners and losers in the socials. I'll just drop that one down to the last 90 days, just to get a clear picture, not over, oh no, a bit messy. And just try news just for fun. If you're not familiar with this tool, you go to trends.google.com and then just start to explore and search for different things. That doesn't really help, does it? Let's try the last 12 months where it's a smoother gradient. So I would expect for some of these news, like that might be the bushfires in Australia. Yeah, I would say. But you'll see a gradient or a bit of a change happening. Something that Gary's saying is, if the platform itself dictates how seriously we should take what's said on it. I'm a bit funny about platforms. And what I mean is we say, I hate Facebook, or TikTok's a waste of time, or YouTube is a time sink, or Instagram's just poses. But it's not the platform. There are people on those platforms undertaking those behaviors, and then we have to curate that stream ourselves. It is entirely possible that someone could create a Facebook account and only follow traditional media pages and nobody or anybody else, and then they have a news feed that's just full of traditional media. And then somebody else can create a news feed that's only about extremists and only connects to the more extremist. And then others create a news feed that doesn't have any of that kind of stuff in it because their network are only interested in horses or their grandbabies or whatever it is that's going on. So I do think that it's up to us to curate the information that we receive. The big problem we have currently, and this is, social media is not creating this, but it is definitely making us feel bad, is we're realizing how much fake is out there. And I don't just mean fake news. And I'm not looking just at the Breitbart fake, traditional fake news. When did we get to that point? But, obvious fake news site. But we're starting to explore what traditional media, CNN and MSNBC and Fox and The Australian, and how they're positioning things to us. And then we really fell through the rabbit hole because we have to question who? World Health Organization. And we find out how political WHO is, and that they're completely funded by entities that have an agenda, a very kind of scary agenda. And I'm not rejecting everything that WHO does and says. I'm just saying that their basic premise is not the traditional non-profit, which is a charity to help us, a people's charity. WHO is there as a organization, is to help organizations and nations present the best possible view. Sort of almost feels sometimes like a PR agency for a nation's health. I don't know. It's problematic. It worries me. And then we look at every time somebody gets up at a podium next to the Minister of Health or a senator or a prime minister or a president, and they stand next to them, we're like, what's your agenda? Where are you coming from? So there's this big fake health thing that's happening. And by fake health, I'm not implying, what was that, that nurse that runs a plastic surgery and tattoo clinic and is an extremist. I'm not just talking about that. I mean, we're looking at the leaders in our community and then asking ourselves, what's their agenda? What's going on here? Why are we being told masks are good, masks are not good? What is the agenda behind all of this? Anyway, I think that's probably enough from me on this session. I wanted to really ask people, did social media help or hinder you during these crisis times? Were you at home and single and alone and using social media to reach out to people who love you, who are at a distance and couldn't be physically with you? Or did you sit at home just getting angry and frustrated and depressed? Or maybe it was all of the above. Anyway, I just hope you found that interesting. I have another Laurel Live coming up in the next couple of days. And for this one, we're going to talk, it's a technical one. It's the different kind of audiences that the algorithm uses. So the difference between the preferred audience and the custom audience and the saved audience, the target audience, the lookalike audience, yada yada, pixel audiences, all of them, and how the algorithm uses those different audiences to decide what you're going to see and what you're not going to see. So if that's of interest to you, stay tuned for the next session. Otherwise, thank you for your time today. And yes, okay, bye.